Hello, I'm Richard. I'm one of the writers and tutors here at Astranti Financial Trading, and I'm going to take you in this video through the strategic analysis of the management case study company Menteen. So in this latest management case study, we're focusing on the film industry, which is an industry we all know about. All of us, I imagine, have been at some point to see a film in the cinema, but we probably don't know the workings of the industry behind it. So it's a very interesting business for us to analyse. It's a large, well-established company based in B-land, a fictional country in Europe. It has large revenues, but it does face many challenges in its day-to-day operations and in its long-term market. So as I go through this pack, I'm going to be highlighting key points for you and annotating occasionally as I go. So let's get into it and move down the page. Okay, we're into strategic analysis. What is it? We are going to use the rational planning model to dig into Menteen from a strategic point of view. So how does the rational model work? Well, we know what the rational planning model is. You start here in the future with the mission and the objectives that you aim to achieve. You then start to look at what you have now, and then you work out how to get there. Okay, that's what it is in a nutshell. And so it means deciding what sort of governance and ethics are we aiming for? What sort of relationship do we want with our stakeholders? Okay, and then we start looking at what we actually have. So we're looking at the outside forces that are influencing the business. We're looking at the competitive environment. We're performing internal analysis that we might do via a SWOT analysis, and then we look at the value chain analysis. So we've got a very granular view of the business that we have today, and then we decide on the most appropriate strategy to get all of this to this. And so we look at using Porter's generic strategies. We can use Ansof's matrix to generate strategic choice, and we can look at the method of growth that we want to use to get there. That's what we're going to be doing. Let's get on with it. Now, if you don't know where you're going, it's very unlikely that you're going to get there, at least not in the most efficient way. So the first stage of analysis is always to ensure that you fully understand where the organisation is heading, along with its approach to meeting stakeholder needs. And that's why we need to do our stakeholder mapping early on in the game, so we understand who the players are. Okay. Now, when it comes to stating a mission, Campbell set out, as you will recall from your studies, the following key elements. We need to know the purpose. We need to know how the strategy. We need to know the organisation's values and the policies it will use to implement them. That's it in a nutshell. You can always pause this video and read the text at your leisure if I'm going too fast for you. So the next slide I want you to look at concerns objectives and performance. Now, the issue that we've got with this particular case study is that we're not given any specific targets in the pre-scene. So to some extent, we're working a little bit blind. What we will have to do is infer from the industry pack and from the pre-scene analysis what the objectives ought to be, and then try and work our way around it. So it may well be that in the exam you are going to be given some specific targets that we've not been told about so far. If the unseen materials you get on exam day suggests that they don't have specific targets at all, then obviously we can identify this as a weakness. So one of the recommendations that you would obviously want to make in that instance would be that they actually develop this area of the business so they know where they're going. When it comes to measuring objectives, performance measurement, what I think is the balanced scorecard could work quite well, because if you go through the pre-scene materials, we do see the balance sheet, we see all the numbers, but there's very little evidence of any kind of robust or any kind of non-financial performance measurement in the case. They're really focused on box office takings and numbers, but for example, we don't see any measurements on corporate social responsibility, environmental sustainability, that sort of thing. Okay, so that could be a preliminary recommendation that you make. When it comes to corporate governance, Menteen is a listed company, so you would expect to see a robust corporate governance in place. And just going through the UK code, that would include such things as separate chairman and CEO. Okay, you'd want to see independent non-executive directors. You'd like to see the various committees that are needed, audit and remuneration particularly. You'd like to see a good focus on risk management, particularly in the film industry where risk is very high. You'd want to see directors' pay disclosed. You'd like to see good control of financial reporting, so that should all be fully compliant and correct. Now, the first aspect is that the pre-scene does introduce us to a full set of NEDs, as I've put it there. There is a full set of non-executive directors, so that's definitely a good practice. I don't see, however, any mention of remuneration at all. I don't see any mention of the committees that govern remuneration, audit and nominations. Okay, we must assume that they are there. However, they're not mentioned in the case study. Okay, the pre-scene is silent on the other key governance issues. Okay, now it is a listed company. We must assume that they do have these things in place, but I would be on the lookout during the exam for anything that might be deemed a weakness around disclosures of directors regarding conflicts of interest and their pay, financial reporting and control. There is something very specific in the pre-scene analysis that I alert you to if you want to look at that particular video. Information for directors. We would want to see regular meetings with the key stakeholders, particularly institutionals. And you'd want to see them using the AGM to communicate with their key stakeholders and keeping them close. Okay? Now, I feel that corporate social responsibility could be a very fruitful area for us to look at in the exam, particularly because the film industry is especially weak on CSR in general, and that's come out of my analysis of the industry in the industry pack. Okay, so I think some of the specific issues that we might want to look around are environmental, such as energy consumption. We'd like to see Menteen working on reducing energy consumption. We'd like to see it conducting energy audits and reducing its pollution, not just energy pollution waste, but the kind of techno trash that might be left over after a production. The way that it sources materials for its productions can be very wasteful, so we'd like to see them recycling as much as we can. Okay, so that's one big issue. The film industry is one of the world's largest polluters. You might think it's the chemicals industry or food and consumer goods, but actually the film industry accounts for an enormous amount of carbon emissions and energy use. Okay, when it comes to staff, anything around staff treatment is going to be a fruity subject for the exam. In the film industry, we're very highly unionized. The various professional guilds are high power stakeholders in the film industry and are able to bring their members out on strike if anything is amiss around pay, terms, credit and safety. Now, credit's an interesting one. If you're a freelance producer and you or an independent producer, perhaps I should say, and you work for a film studio on a production and they don't give you the correct credit at the end of that film, then you're limited. You've only got your portfolio to trade on, if you like, what you can show people that you've worked on. So if you do all the work, it's not just enough to get paid correctly. You need to be given due credit. The same goes for writers and all kinds. That's why you see those credits at the ends of films. Now, when it comes to community, there's nothing specific in the pre-scene to suggest any kind of benefit to the community. That said, film production companies are significant local employers. Now, you might hire stars that are international celebrities and so forth, but when you go into production, wherever it is that you're making that production, and you might be going to the UK from B land because of a particular tax incentive that's there, you're going to be hiring local crew, local staff, rather than bringing everyone over from B land. So there is a community benefit, but there's also a community fallout as well in terms of the waste and the energy and so forth that you create. And when it comes to ethics, lastly, wow, the film industry is kind of the Wild West when it comes to ethics, and this really could come from any angle, from the way that acting talent is cast, shall we say, to conflicts of interest between people in the company, the way that films are financed, particularly where finance vehicle is used where there is a significant tax advantage to the investor. Those can be quite dodgy and quite tricky from an ethics point of view, if not from a legal point of view. And so not only is Menteen going to have to be vigilant on its own ethics, but because it works with a whole range of inputs and external agencies and other companies, it does need to check its suppliers out as well. Now, just before I go, let me remind you that this is not the end of it. We do offer a full range of support materials, including the study text and other course videos. We do the industry analysis, where we look at the real world industry that your case study is based on. We do mock exams around the case study exam, and we offer marking, feedback and masterclasses, all of which are covered by the Astranti Pass guarantee. So I'll see you in the next video.